So here are the study techniques and strategies I used in undergrad and college, as well as physical therapy school. So if you want to learn the study strategies I use, then this is the video for you.
Yeah, it's one heart, one shot, now the future is yours. I'm turning dreams into reality. In the lab with the...
So if you want to start studying like a physical therapy student, then here's the video. We're gonna go through these steps. So my name is Coleman. I'm a physical therapist and the co-founder of Pre-PT Grind. So let's get right into it. Here are the three I use, then we'll talk about them. Number one is active recall. Next is spaced repetition. And lastly is the Feynman technique. All right, so number one, active recall. Really what active recall is doing is replicating what you do on a traditional test. So on a traditional test, you look at the paper and you have to remember or recall what you learned and put it on that paper or that computer, or press that button A, B, C, or D, right? So when you're studying, why aren't we replicating the same thing that we have to do on the test? And that is the premise or the idea behind active recall. So when I was an undergrad in grad school, I used this by learning a certain passage or a certain figure or table or muscle or insertions, whatever you're learning, stoichiometry or the light spectrum in physics, it does not matter. You learn a certain section of that concept, you get it down, you highlight it, you read it, however you absorb that information. Then once you're done, you look away or you cover that information up and you try and actively recall that information that you just learned. And sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's difficult. You're gonna get mad at yourself if you don't remember exactly what you learned, but that is the real power in active recall, because in that struggle where you're trying to recall that information is where those neurons are being formed and being connected, and that's what you want. Because the more you actively recall that information, the stronger those neurons will be connected, and the better you'll remember that information when test time comes. Okay, so that's kind of a basic rundown of what active recall is. And there's plenty of research studies, there's plenty of YouTube videos breaking that down even more. So that's the first strategy I use. Next, number two is spaced repetition. Spaced repetition. So this can be used in conjunction with active recall, because with spaced repetition, you're studying your different subjects or different passages or chapters or units or concepts, whatever you're learning for the test, in different areas of time, usually over different days. So if you have a week or 2 weeks that you have before a test, this will be a perfect time to use spaced repetition. Because with spaced repetition, what you're doing is over time reinforcing those neural connections that we made with active recall. So one day you're doing that active recall technique on Monday. Cool, you're solidifying it. Then on Wednesday or Tuesday night, you're doing that active recall again. You're spacing out the repetitions of you learning the same information, as well as adding new information on. So if you do Monday, you learn, I don't know, chapter 1. Wednesday, you learn chapter 1 and 2. Friday, you learn chapter 1, 2, and 3. Then the next Monday, you learn chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on and so forth. So by the time you get to your test date, 2 weeks or 10 days later, you've learned chapter 1 so many times over. What's that? 6 times? Whatever times over. However many times you studied it. And that's reinforcing what you learned using active recall inside of that spaced repetition technique. So that's the second strategy I used, and it worked wonders for me. I went into the test just feeling so much more relaxed and at ease, and feeling like I did not have to cram the night before the test, and it just made me feel better. So that's spaced repetition. That was number two. Then lastly is the Feynman technique, and this is just a way to say teach it to other people. So there's a scientist called Feynman, Feynman, I believe, and he's an amazing scientist. Go look him up. But this is basically a technique where you teach it to other people in the simplest way possible. So if you're learning stoichiometry, or you're learning about the blood supply to the biceps, whatever you're learning, can you explain that to a 5-year-old, to a 10-year-old, to your grandmother who doesn't know what that means or what that is? If you can do that, taking all the information you learn from active recall, your chapters, your figures, your units, in-space repetition, all that, and you can condense it down to something that's easy to understand to somebody who does not know this, then you know what you're talking about and you can easily go into that test feeling more confident. So if you can teach it to another person, you are on the right track and you really know what you're talking about. So those are the 3 strategies that I used in undergrad as well as physical therapy school, and now it worked somewhat because I'm a physical therapist now. So definitely look those up, try those out, and that's how I use them as well. So hope that helps, hope that brought you value. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you on the next video.